You are listening to Level Up Your Gaming Podcast, episode 78, Level Up Your Playing. Today we talk about the player side of the table. We talk with our friend Brian again on how we've upped our play styles and what we did to get there. We also try to pinpoint what makes a good player. If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribe and we'll ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and joining me in person is Jared to my left, our wonderful co-host. And joining us again via Zoom is our third member of our Tres Amigos.
Tres Amigos.
Brian. How are you doing, Brian?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. A little bit more casual this time. You know, not as I'm fantastic. How are you, Mr.?
It's no longer a pleasure to be here. So.
It's no longer a pleasure. Now it's just fucking work. Jesus.
So I know after we forced you back on a second time, it gets much worse. So, how are you doing today, Jared?
Not bad. A little tired.
So
I did not play Nap Roulette today.
You did not play Nap Roulette today, the most dangerous game of all. That's where you take a nap and see if you wake up in time to make it so.
That's if I take a nap and see if I wake up in time to open the door for you.
But anyways, we're going to be talking about today a topic similar to the Level Up Your Gaming podcast, because it is not just leveling up your gaming, it's leveling up your playing. And that's why we included our third player in the group, Brian. And so the key here is, how do you level up your playing? Because I think about when we first started role-playing and the type of player that I was. And I also want to get Jared's perspective on this, because he was always our GM. And you were not a very good player.
I still don't see myself as a good player. Like, I'm trying to be better. Like, I don't know. It's up to you guys to tell me if I'm getting any better.
So what makes a good player?
Well, he does what I tell him to.
Okay, so Dictator Jared or God King Jared.
They always compliment me. They show up on time. They bring me free food.
The best players are my NPCs.
The best players are my NPCs. They're fantastic.
They do exactly what I want.
Except they don't show up on time and they don't bring me food.
All right, I want to ask you, Brian, what makes a good player?
I mean, I think for us, a lot of what has evolved over the years is really kind of digging into character motivations. I think we touched on this a bit the last time, but that, like, with our older characters, we didn't have a lot going to start.
No.
We kind of based it on whatever the game was, or even older. Oh my God, we used to just play mercenaries.
Mercenaries nonstop, baby.
But Brian, I want a big knife.
I want a big knife.
Yeah, the character background where that was my one thing I wanted, was I want a big knife.
Essentially, our characters had the level of, or like less.
There.
Sorry, they had less freaking history than, I don't know, the characters in Predator. You know, I mean, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger, at least you knew at some point he had done some work for the CIA, and they're a rescue squad, not a hit squad. But, like, our characters had less background than that. They were essentially like Blaine, where you know that he likes dip and feels himself a sexual tyrannosaurus. Like, that's all you knew about Blaine. You didn't know if he had a family at home. I don't know if any of those guys had a family at home. Special forces have families. They do. Like,
but yeah, no, I agree. I mean, our motivations were about as far as an outreached arm. I mean, like,
they would give us money.
We never did a good. I mean, it was mercenaries. It was always, hey, we'll
murder for food.
Pretty much, except for it was will murder for trillions of dollars.
He's a living rutabaga. What more backstory do you need?
He's a living rutabaga who shot people for money. Like, God, it's just amazing how we've evolved over the time from the sentient, violent rutabaga who shot people for money to the characters we have now. It is amazing. Think about it. That was when we were like 13, 12.
You were murdered by a plant.
You were murdered by a sentient plant whose literal occupation is hitman. Like, nobody saw anything wrong with that either.
Looking back on it, could have made a really cool backstory.
I mean, like, you could have developed, had there been some more, like, he was an experiment. We have no clue how Rutabaga, that was his name, too. It was fucking Rutabaga. He wasn't even like John Rutabaga. And when he died, you made Rutabaga 2.
Where is this coming from?
That was his name, Rutabaga 2. Like, it wasn't even a name. It was just, this is the vegetable that I am with the designated number. Like, it would have been cool had we, nowadays, now my brain's like, oh man, rutabaga could have come from a secret government laboratory where they're turning vegetables violent.
I'm celery 4.
I'm celery 4. Shit, what lab is this, man? It's crazy. This could end up as a Fox show. In a world
7.
full of violent vegetables. One man stands. Rutabaga 2. Not really a man. Actually, still mutant vegetable. Actually, I think it was an alien, to be honest. Because I think that was a classification you could take from Aliens Unlimited.
Possibly. I don't actually remember. All I know is that looking back on it, I go, boy, something's changed.
Oh, don't worry about it, because remember my fucking character? I took him straight from a goddamn comic book.
You were Deadpool.
I played Deadpool. I did.
You just weren't as wisecracking.
That was not half as witty.
No, you just were able to shoot things and regenerate.
Shoot things and not die. I mean, that's...
So yeah, I think that the biggest change, I think, from then to now is fleshing out a little bit of backstory, having like a reason to motivate the characters more than
Why'd
just
they get up out of bed in the morning?
Trillions of dollars.
There's a reason that I don't, that I get up out of bed. And also, honestly, I think one of the things is, and I say this from both a storyteller perspective and a player perspective, is making them more human. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think that's been a huge change in the characters. Even like from say our White Wolf, vampire, werewolf, mage days to now is that we make characters that eat, that have things about certain things that they eat, that go to bed, that have hobbies.
I think for me, a big transition point was the Technocracy game.
I was about to say that. Yes, I agree.
No, go ahead.
Your character ate salads because it helped alleviate the headaches that he had from his implant. Mm-hmm. And, he tried different things inside the Technocracy. He experimented. He had a life. He was a being. He was a human being.
Yeah.
It was really, I think that was a hallmarker point of change, and then now, I mean, like, I look at my character now. Rachel is a terrible artist. Like, that's her hobby. She's a terrible artist. Literally, I took crafts of 0. I took no crafts and told everyone she is an artist. Why? Because she's horrible at it. She's terrible. Now, when it comes to, increasing her bicep size, she's fantastic.
The gorilla bow.
Gorilla bow,
She's an artist on the battlefield.
She's great on the battlefield, but when it comes to something that she actually loves to do, which is art, she's horrible. Like, people look at her.
Look at that one up on the fridge.
Yeah, that one's.
I think that's a great point that you brought up, though, about how the characters have become more human. That we've embraced the more mundane, because most of the characters in the past were just stats on a sheet to fulfill the purpose of being able to, okay, I need to be able to shoot guns I need to be able to dodge hits, and I need to be able to sometimes, manipulate some people.
But like even deeper than that, like even when we started creating characters with more complex backstories, I'm the third son of the Khalasar, to use, I don't know, Game of Thrones, or I'm the eighth son in a group of 15 or whatever. We'd come up. Look at Ken. He'd make elaborate backstories. Could you tell me what his character liked on his bagel? Was he a butter guy or a cream cheese guy?
Again, the backstory by itself isn't sufficient to make a good character, because, I mean, I've seen plenty of characters that have had long, crazy backstories, and they're just flat characters. Like, the player hasn't gained anything by doing the process of creating that backstory. The backstory is worthless if it creates no motivation.
It's true, exactly. If you could have a 35-page backstory, it is useless for me to tell you, okay, breaking the therapist's wife, you got to live in the present. That's great to know that the past was full of yada, 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 tragedy, trials, and triumphs, right? But if you can't tell me what your character does on Wednesday mornings, it lacks something.
Why does your character get out of bed? I think that is a way to level up your playing. If you can't answer that question to your GM, your 30-page backstory is worthless.
It is. Mm-hmm. How does your character feel about working for this king? I want to take a D&D angle, right? Does your character feel okay with taking money from a king to rescue a daughter? Yeah, my character's great with it. Does your character feel okay taking money from a king to kill a group of kobolds? Yeah, I'm fine with it. How about kobolds with feelings? Kobolds that are stealing because they're poor and hungry and ostracized by everyone because they're kobolds. Everyone thinks kobolds are evil. My character's okay with that. Okay, so your character's kind of a psychopath. Gotcha. All right, now we're developing something. We're fleshing it out a little bit. Your character's essentially part of the Stasi, and they're okay with that. But when you start delving into the world of like, oh man, my character's not cool with that, how do you react? Now we're role playing. Now we're leveling up our playing, because like, I don't want to work for a king who pays people 35 gold to go murk some kobolds because they're kobolds. Because everyone thinks kobolds are evil. How do I allow this injustice to continue forward? Or do I assassinate a king? I know I got a little deep. Aaron's giving me the look. Or do I assassinate a king?
Movie announcer voice.
Movie announcer
Movie
voice.
announcer voice. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Brian? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think and I will say, for me, a lot of times I don't necessarily go into a game knowing all that up front. But it's something that I need to have figured out within the first couple games, that I'll start to get a feel for the character. And I think a lot of the background stuff can help inform that. So a lot of times what I'll do, I've found this particularly helpful more recently, is look at my flaws to try to motivate how I'm going to behave. The merits and flaws system for White Wolf in particular gives you kind of a launching off point for that. Here are the things that I've said my character is good at, and here are the things my character is bad at. And how does that motivate how he behaves in these situations? And so I think that helps bring a lot of life when you're specifically playing out these things that you're bad at. Like you said, I mean, even if this isn't a listed flaw for your current character, you're bad at art, but you keep trying at it.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of idea. Again, you didn't, take the flaw bad at art, but it's the same idea where you're I have this flaw, but I still like to do it.
And it's just about making, Like, even if you're playing something that isn't human, let's go with an inhuman character, right? Like, personally, let's take an experiment into the world of vampire, right? You're playing a creature that literally drinks blood for a living. How do they make money? They can't step out in daylight. Now we have a moral conundrum with the character, right? If they're still human, have human emotions and feelings and yada yada, and are now vampire makes it very clear that there is some sort of supernatural darkness that is within all vampires, called the Beast, that attempts to eventually vampires, when they become so immoral, they just evolve into raving, blood drinking monsters. What does that character do? You know, and Aaron and I have discussed this in the concept of building vampire games, of like essentially the prince of the city can hand out jobs and stuff like that. You are indebted to them for your to have a goddamn apartment. You know what I mean? But like with a vampire character, how does your character stand on the fact that I have to drink blood for a living? I have to steal money. I can't hold down a 9-to-5 IT job.
I think most players tend to just kind of overlook that.
Right.
A lot of GMs will overlook it as well. And I guess that kind of goes into your tone of your game.
Yes.
And do you want to have go back to kind of your session 0 and your gathering of your players? Are you going to be telling a story about the struggle of being a vampire, being kind of clash between this terror between being human and trying and fitting into this kind of immortal life, and how do you kind of mesh that? Or are you going to tell a very different game, which is kind of the vampire games that we've told in the past, which is,
how can I kill my way to the top?
How can I kill my way to the top? How can I backstab the prince and, eventually overthrow him and then diabolarize him and,
roll my generation and get higher stats?
Yeah, all that good stuff that you have there, which is, one is a much more. I mean, one's more of like the like akin to like the Mafia game or
yes,
Grand Theft Auto. I mean, the other one is a much different game about morality and things like that. So again, I think when you look at this as being players in it, this is where your players kind of have to inform and give you suggestions and feedback saying, I want to explore XYZ. It can't just be you as a GM trying to.
Yes. That, and it's funny because like about 5 minutes after you asked me what was a good player and I joked around with it, it's a player that communicates with me. That makes a huge difference in my players. It's a player that lets me know when they're not having a great time in my game. It's a player that's telling me that I'm doing a good job. It's the player that tells me, like, I want to change my character to more do this. It's a player who tells me I want to explore. That, for me, makes a huge difference because I feel once we started actually falling down that path of communication, things changed a lot.
The other thing that's also worked out is sort of a... I wouldn't call it like, it's kind of like a general acceptance or a general willingness to sort of suspend a little bit of disbelief.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that goes a long way as a player to making things more amenable for your GM. So to try and fit in, if your GM's trying to do something that's scary, you can communicate later how to improve the scariness, but your goal as a player to really kind of be a better player is to try to thrive on it and feed into the emotional kind of thing, and to kind of move along with it, to not resist it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, like I said, players who do what I want them to do. No, but I mean, leveling up your playing for me has really been practice. Getting more, playing more. I think I've gotten better with each character. And it's for me, it was fleshing out the character and really making a human being, with thoughts, feelings, and emotions and, friends. I mean, like, honestly, I can look at my characters in the past and be like, how many of them actually had fucking friends? And they didn't.
Again, your characters in the past, a lot of the characters that you would make would be, I just want to be Batman.
Iron Batman. Is
the Iron Bat.
The Iron Bat.
I think a lot of times too, I mean, that kind of hit you specifically is since you were always kind of the main storyteller of the group, whenever you were playing, it was generally for a fairly short period of time.
Yeah, typically.
So you didn't get in all that much experience. You didn't get all that much playing time. I mean, even if it's, even if the game, say, runs for a couple months, like then you're back in the GM seat and that's it. Set that character down. You're never going to play it again.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I like this episodic storytelling so much more, because I really do get to play a character and I can pick them up again and get a little break and come back and make a big game. And
but you also never seem to, and I don't know how we kind of got into this, because there have been plenty of characters that I have not loved playing.
Which is amazing, because I don't know, Aaron, you've really made solid characters over the years, and maybe it's the fact that you take 45 years to make one character. I don't know, but you've always made very solid characters.
Well, I have to start preparing them for the next game, otherwise, we're going to be sitting there for hours.
Hours and años y años. Years and years. But yeah, no, continue. I'm sorry to cut you off.
There have been players, there have been characters that I have not super enjoyed playing. I don't know, maybe it's been connection to the game, or it's been the type of character that I created in the creation process. But I've always had the ability. I've had the ability to play a wide array of characters, which is different from what you had for a while, which is you jump in and you'd be like, okay, I'm gonna be a player, and you'd be like, okay, I need to play something and it needs to be like perfect right now. And I don't know, maybe that was always kind of your problem. Again, I always think it's kind of a practice thing. You kind of learn the things that help your GM tell a more fluid story, and you kind of mirror some of the things that you need to do to help your GM get over some humps. Mm-hmm. I mean, you give them plenty of shit and you ruin their plans all the time, but for the most part, you're there to kind of help facilitate that the story moves in the right direction. You're not just kind of...
That is very true. That is an important thing for a player. They have to facilitate. If you've literally got a player whose only job is to, fuck your story and screw up your game, go back to one of our previous episodes. I think we have a whole conversation on how to deal with that particular player and the uncomfortable conversation you're going to have. Sucks, but you're going to have it.
It is an uncomfortable conversation. I don't know, Brian, what are your thoughts? What are some of the things that you've noticed have made maybe Jared's life easier, maybe that you've seen in Jared's evolution as a player?
Whoa! When did this turn into a critique about me?
This has always been a critique about you. The whole podcast is a critique
about how much I've sucked as a player for years.
This is an intervention.
Jesus Christ! Fuck you both.
You consented to the recording.
We do have it on audio, actually.
I mean, I'll say I think that there is. This is a little bit off topic from what you asked specifically, but I'll say I think that there is a line too. We talked a little bit about being disruptive last time, and I do think some game disruption, depending on the game, can be good. I'll say that when we were playing with Nick, he was constantly a disruptive presence.
Yes,
but sometimes that could be a lot of fun.
It could be. Humvee through the mansion.
And it
example the first
completely change the trajectory of the game. However, especially with what we're doing now, I think it would be a lot harder to do something like that, just with the type of games we're doing, where I do think it is more important that you're kind of getting through the story as it is. And that doesn't mean that you don't have kind of multiple paths to finish it. But the stories, the way they're crafted, I think it's more important for us to kind of like be more directly involved with it. We're not fighting against something, or we're not pushing against you or what you're presenting as the story. And so working with you is definitely kind of an important aspect of that.
It's not a sandbox game. I mean, is kind of where you're kind of going with that. I know that Nick was very good at. Nick was all motivation all the time.
Yes,
which was I am going to do X, and I'm going to see what obstacles Jared's going to put in front of me as I try to accomplish X. And again, it made for a lot of fancy dancing. It made for very memorable moments. It made for fun games for, you guys as the players and everything. I wasn't part of a lot of those games, but so I'm kind of throwing those out there. But I know that every time he was a part of the game, he always had something in his mind, like, this is something that I want to do. Jared, craft me the world to kind of be able to execute my vision.
That's very true.
And sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. You were making a point.
I was just saying that in that world, any disruption from any player throws chaos and wrenches into that, and there was no end in sight. It wasn't like you wanted us to defeat X villain, and in order to defeat X villain, we have to figure out some steps to get there. It was X villain is there because I need a roadblock for my player.
It's true, and that's with sandbox games. I mean, sandbox games. So for those of listeners that haven't gone into our different types of games episode, a sandbox game is essentially that your players create characters, you put them in the world, and you essentially, as a storyteller, go laissez-faire, hands off, and they can do whatever they want in the world, and they try to make their way in the world. It's effective. I would say that there's many players who would jump at that opportunity. There are many players who would thrive in that environment. I can say for many years that we played sandbox type games for many, many years. But it's kind of funny as a sandbox storyteller for many years. And now I'm doing more linear storytelling. I like linear. It's weird.
I enjoy the story.
I do too, right?
I like getting something that you've spent time crafting. Now the sandbox was fun because you could kind of do what you wanted and carve your own path. But getting the interesting story that you've spent time crafting is fun.
It is. It's making moments. You know what I mean?
I think one thing that you've done, and I know we touched on this a little bit with the last episode, to I think help make the characters come together more, is we do typically have moments of peace within the story. And those moments of peace, I know you've mentioned, sitting together at the office of the investigation agency is one. That's when we kind of interact with each other, and I think bring a lot of life to the characters.
It does, right? It's those moment of peace moments, where we're just sitting at the characters are sitting at the breakfast table. There's no briefing. Just came down for breakfast.
There's a lot of that downtime within the game, and it's just kind of just let it breathe. Just let it breathe. Just let the players kind of interact with one another.
Right.
Their thing.
And I think giving us that time has given us the opportunity to help flesh out the characters.
No, I completely agree with that. I think that makes sense in terms of, it gives it every game that we've drawn that has been linear here in these really kind of mini episodic pieces. They are sandboxes in and of themselves. They are do what you need to do to get to the end goal. You've given us a goal. Okay? It's instead of us driving the goal, you're saying, here's the goal, okay? And here's the problem. Here's the little sandbox, my little town that I've given you, or this carve out of this building that I've given you, and whatever you've got as your setting. That's your sandbox. You just put walls on the box, and you said there is no sand outside these walls. Don't bother going outside the walls,
because then I'll just end the game. Again, do what I want.
But
I bring it back to that point.
Again, you're getting your players to sort of do, but that's the contract that you have with your players is I'm not going to limit you in how you kind of solve your problem, but you need to solve it within the boundaries that I've given you.
And I mean, like, exactly, that's the contract, and that is, I totally lost my point right there. Wow. See, this is what happens.
This is what happens when you try to go outside the sandbox.
Hey, don't be on the line, okay? Sorry, inside joke. My wife, apparently there's a thing called being on the line, which I don't know means I don't know what it means. I looked at her, I was like, what does that even mean? She's like, just tell them they'll be on the line.
I feel like this is kind of like your ass is grass.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I think it's supposed to be that, but like, that makes no, I don't know, it's probably an Irish thing.
But no, I think the things that have made us better players and kind of moving up in our playing and our style too. It's also learning some of the kind of playing into some of the soft skills, doing more role playing over rolling dice in role playing. We've always tried to find more. I think in our younger years we would just be here's a bunch of dice, and let's just get into a fight. Let's just get into a combat. Okay, looking at how to solve things in different ways. Because in our younger years, we would shoot first and never ask questions.
Shoot first, shoot some more, pop a couple of dead rounds into the dead body, and then try to ask a question.
Yeah, if we're at a diner and Grandma Mary is serving us coffee and she's like, I know the secrets of the world. We like, we just beat her up and be like, tell us your secrets.
I mean, literally, violence was like our number one solution to everything. Got to open up a can of beer. Like, all right, I pop it around in it. Like there we go. Delicious.
And most of our stuff there, most of our motivation was in trying to gain more power from the characters. Yeah. Like that it was, our motivation was poor in that, like, I just want to get more XP so I can rank up and get stronger. And that's what a lot of people do in D&D and stuff, is that there's a whole contingent of people that, this is leveling up your playing is trying to move a little bit past just the leveling up part of the game. It's trying to find another level to your playing to be able to expand role playing. The levels are there to make combat a little bit easier, be able to jazz some things up, be able to do a couple more things in the game. But I mean, if you're totally reliant upon, you're like, I need to get to level 4 so I can get Fireball. Like, that's
and that for me is the storytellers getting older, getting a little wiser, that sort of thing. I always look to the storyteller and be like, why not just start off the game at level 4 so I can throw a fireball? Why not?
Does it change your game or just make the combat easier? Like
he wants to throw a fireball. Come on, give your player a little something.
Well, and if that is like your motivation, if you're like, I want to throw a fireball,
why?
Exactly. And like,
Brian, why do you need a big knife? I just
oh yeah, I can always throw that back on you two guys.
You can have that goal of like, I want to get stronger, but it's so much better of a goal if you have a reason for it. Maybe you got your ass kicked a bunch and you're trying to like get stronger and get revenge, or maybe you want to get so powerful nobody can touch you. Like, you should have some form of motivation behind that so that like your character's driven for a reason, that you're not just going out there and just getting stronger for the sake of getting stronger. And I think that's a lot of what we lacked before. We're just like, oh, we want to get powerful and beat stuff up.
Sorry, this is a slight tangent. I am going to admit it. Like, okay, so, since, all right, Batman, I love Batman. Everyone knows this. Done.
It's canon now.
It's canon now. So in The Dark Knight, there's the statement that Alfred makes. Some men just want to watch the world burn. Right? I love that quote. It's a great quote. Great quote for a movie. Right? And like, I feel like it gets thrown around so much nowadays, like for just like, we're not going to analyze it. Just some man don't want to watch the word burn, you know? And it's same thing for characters. A lot of characters. Why do you want this? Some men just want to watch the world burn. Like, no, there's almost always a reason. My wife is a therapist. She literally analyzes trauma and current human behavior because of something in the past for a living. Okay. If you're not going to develop a 35-page backstory, but you want some trait in your character, at least develop the motivation for that trait. I want to throw fireballs because I come from a land that's infested with ice. It's lame. I mean, like, what is Elsa your ruler? But that'd be terrible. I'd look at him and be like, oh, okay. Can we flesh that out a little bit? Like,
listen, Jared, let it go. Okay.
And you do it. I was
let it go. Let it go. At least there's at least a motivation behind why that player thinks or why that character wants the fireball. It's a shitty motivation. I mean, like, and as a storyteller, you should motivate your player to be like, can you rethink that one just a little bit? Like, just give it.
Or, I mean, even with that one, that gives you an opportunity as a storyteller to maybe make some sort of ice ruler that they have to go back and confront in the future.
All right, quit trying to outdazzle me, you prick.
What?
No, it's true. That's a great point.
It gives you something to work with.
It does. At least I've got something. I've got, okay, well, maybe you really won't like cold then. Set a game where there's a goddamn blizzard, where you can actually use that fireball to warm people, instead of just, burning kobolds alive. I don't know.
And I get it.
What's your issue with kobolds?
No, like, honestly, ask any D&D player. I'm not a D&D player. Everyone knows this. Like, I have not played a large amount of D&D, but like from what I've read on every freaking role-playing forum, kobolds are an oppressed people.
I have a problem with your treatment of kobolds today, Jared.
No, I have a problem with the D&D universe's treatment of kobolds. Like, those sons of bitches, like, they walk outside like, there's an evil asshole, and they just murk them. Like, it's flat out racism. Literally, well, speciesism, I guess. Like, just because you're a kobold, you're evil. It's true.
The more you know about D&D, I guess.
The more you look into this shit, like, holy fuck! I'm like, how many people just automatically assume kobolds are evil?
Yeah, I come back to a comment that I saw on our YouTube. Somebody posted, and it was on our Heroes and Villains episode. The guy said, that there's a lot of people who are just playing the game to, place to basically beat things up and basically get into combat and just have fun doing the combat thing. And again, if that's what you want to do, like,
bully for you.
Bully for you. But I mean, if you've been playing the game for years and years and years, that's only reason why you play it. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you can get out of the role playing game, and I think again, look at the hobby as it is, and try and find ways to find more enjoyment. Like, I can't do the same thing for 20 years and feel like
you can. Some people can, and bully for them.
Yeah, but I mean, sure, yeah.
There's some people who still like to, I don't know, cook on fire stoves rather than electric. I don't know. Bully for them. I don't give a shit either way.
Fire stove for life.
See, yeah, you're one of them, aren't you? You fucking hate electric
heat
stoves.
on demand. Okay, it's a superior cooking form. I will not hear any other arguments against.
Well, either way, I've cooked with electric. I've cooked with heat. But if this person's comment to their credence, that's what they want to do. Fantastic. Bully for them. I fully support them as long as their storyteller and the rest of the group intends that for what they want, because some people might be there for other reasons to really enjoy the game that there's so much offered by role playing. It's like saying, I I like my truck for mudding. That's all I like it for. You don't like it because it has leather interior. You don't like it because it has a great sound system. There's other things to enjoy with that truck besides mudding. But for the people who just like freaking mudding, just make sure everyone else is cool with that.
Well put.
That it really wasn't, but
something we can all relate to.
I'm sorry. I love Dodge Rams. I'm just gonna say
we have other things in our games. We still do combat. We still frequently get into combat. So I think we still get to kind of scratch that itch of like, you're destroying evil at some point or you're fighting. But I think we've added additional emotional depth in like a variety of places, both like in the characters and their reactions, in the way the story is told. And I think, at least, for us, it seems like it has kind of enriched the experience.
It has. And, honestly, again, I'm not going to harp on this point. I'm probably going to lay it down right after this. If someone's like, I just play role-playing games for the combat, like, all right, there's video games out there that do it too. There are games that entirely center around beating each other. It's called Mortal Kombat. Like, you can get the same thrill and really great graphics. But as Sheldon would say, the greatest graphics processor is the human brain.
Thank you.
I've been watching a lot of Big Bang lately.
Anyways.
Cut his mic.
All right. So and you're on mute now. So do we have any other thoughts? Jared obviously can't speak right now. So
I can totally speak. I think I've spoken very intelligent. See, ladies and gentlemen, this is what the abuse that I put up with every Friday or Saturday.
You're just getting a taste of it right now.
You're just getting a taste of the abuse that I suffer.
Just warming up.
This isn't even full tilt.
The tiniest violin playing.
Oh my god! But no, for characters, I would say for some of the leveling up your players, be more communicative with your storyteller. That is huge. That is huge to hear from you in your thoughts, your dreams, your wants, your desires. Where I can do better, where I can do worse. I want to hear that. I want feedback. And really also making human beings. I mean, even building a character that isn't human.
Just giving them that touch of humanity.
Something.
Like the spark of humanity.
I'm sure even
the spark of ingenuity.
All right, Transformers.
Things should be motivating.
The all spark.
You're
yeah, move beyond the rutabaga.
No, I'm saying even if you want to play a rutabaga, like if you want to add some depth, you can.
You can add a little depth.
Brian, what about you? Anything else you want to add to this?
I think I'm good this time.
Think you're good this time? All right. Well, we do sincerely appreciate you joining us
very much.
For both of the last two episodes here, and we welcome your feedback. We're glad to have you here. I'm sure you'll make a guest appearance somewhere in our future, and we thank you for joining us. If you have any thoughts on leveling up your playing, what makes your players good players, or what helps improve players, go ahead and contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com, or comment on the episode at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. You can also send us episode suggestions, any other topics, any other questions you might want to hear us hear about. Otherwise, go ahead, review the podcast on your favorite podcast site, share it with a friend, all that other good stuff. We are on YouTube, as mentioned. So, Brian, Jared.
Question why you are going to click that like button and then click it.
It's all right. This is only Brian's second podcast, so he's not
not
familiar with the cue when I point to him and try to get him to say smash that like button.
Say it, Brian. Just go ahead and say it.
I'll just defer to Jared. Next time you go, Brian, Jared.
All
right, that works too. So anyway. Anyways, that's going to wrap us up for the week. So for Brian and Jared, I'm Aaron. Have a great week, everyone.
Have a great week, everyone.
Have a great week.